Well, hello and welcome to Business Wrap. I'm Sidhant Sibal and let's begin with the top business headlines of the day. Markets snap a 5-day losing streak. Sensex gains 41 points. Nifty ends just one notch down below the crucial 6,700 levels at 6,699. Supreme Court agrees to hear real estate giant Supertech's plea challenging Allahabad High Court's order. The High Court had called for demolition of its two 40-floor towers in Noida. Supreme Court also directs maintenance of status quo. And campaigning about to end in the last day for the 8th phase of Lok Sabha polls. 64 Lok Sabha seats spread across 7 states will go to the polls on Wednesday. Prominent candidates in this phase include Rahul Gandhi, Pallam Raju and Rajiv Pratap Rudy. Well, let's begin with what's making news in the Dalal Street. Key benchmark indices edged higher in choppy trade session. Sensex gained 41 points to end at 22,445, while NSE Nifty ended at 6,699, up 5 points. Indian stock market snapped 5-day losing streak today. Data showed that foreign funds remained net buyers of the Indian stocks on Friday, that's 2nd of May 2014. Index heavyweight Reliance Industries and ITC both rose. Canara Bank jumped as the bank's gross non-performing assets to gross advance declined. Most auto stocks rose. Among the 40 shares Sensex packed, 16 stocks gained and rest of them fell. Gainers on the chart were Hindalco, ONGC, RIL, Tata Steel and L&T, which were up by between 4 to 2%. Losers on the chart were HDFC, Cipla, Tata Power, Bharti Airtel and Infosys, which were down by between 3 to 1%. The market breadth indicating the overall health of the market was negative. On to global market action. European shares were lower on Monday as the European Commission trimmed its economic growth forecast for the euro area in 2015. Key benchmark indices in France and Germany fell by between 1.07% to 1.3%. Stock markets in UK were closed for a public holiday. On to Asian stock market action. Most Asian stocks rose on Wednesday in choppy trade. Key benchmark indices in China, Indonesia and Taiwan were up by between 0.04% to 0.07%. Meanwhile, markets in Singapore, Hong Kong declined 0.34% to 1.28%. Markets in Japan and South Korea are closed today and tomorrow for holiday. Well, on to the big news of the day. The Supreme Court has stayed demolition of 2 buildings of the Supertech developers in Noida. The Apex Court also directed the status quo should be maintained and restrained Supertech from selling or transferring any flats in these 2 towers. On April 11th, the Allahabad High Court had directed the company to refund money to home buyers with 14% interest in 3 months. Noida Authority, Supertech Group and home buyers had last week filed a special petition demanding review of the Allahabad High Court order. The High Court order had directed demolition of twin residential towers for allegedly violating building regulations and the UP Apartments Act 2010.
The Supreme Court agreed to examine real estate major Supertech's plea against the Allahabad High Court's order directing demolition of 2 40-floor towers in Noida and ordered the company not to sell or transfer flats in the building. It also expressed surprise on how Noida had permitted the construction of 40-floor buildings and said that if they are to be demolished, then the authority will have to face the consequences. Earlier, the Allahabad High Court had ordered demolition of Supertech's 2 under-construction towers in the real estate firm's Emerald Court project. The 2 towers have 857 apartments in total. Of these, about 600 flats have already been sold amid a scramble for fresh land as vertical growth becomes severely restricted. Prices are likely to rise 20%. Pushing up apartment prices too. FAR is the relationship between total floor space in a building and the area of the plot it stands on. A higher FAR allows builders to grow vertically on the same piece of land, reducing the need to acquire more land. The High Court judgment might give about 10,000 crore rupees dent to the Noida realtors on account of restriction on use of 30 meter square feet of floor space available under easier FAR rules. Now developers are apprehensive that a tightening in compliance with FAR requirements will increase apartment prices. Also, land prices could zoom in the area by up to 20% as more realty companies vie for limited fresh land. Business Desk, DD News.
Well, campaigning for the 8th phase of Lok Sabha elections to be held on Wednesday is all set to come to end in few minutes' time. 64 seats spread across 7 states and 175 assembly seats in Andhra Pradesh will go to polls in this phase. The constituencies going to polls are 25 in Andhra Pradesh, 7 in Bihar, all 4 in Himachal Pradesh, remaining 2 in Jammu and Kashmir, 15 in Uttar Pradesh, all 5 in Uttarakhand and 6 in West Bengal. By-polls will also be held for 1 assembly seat in Gujarat, 2 in Uttar Pradesh and 1 in West Bengal. Well, political stalwarts whose fate will be decided in this phase include Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi, Union Minister M.M. Pallam Raju, BJP leader Rajiv Pratap Rudy, Smriti Irani and Varun Gandhi, RJD leader and former Bihar CM Rabri Devi and LGP leader Ramvilas Paswan, former Uttarakhand Chief Ministers Bhuvan Chandra Khanduri, Bhagat Singh and Ramesh Pokrihal's fate will also be decided in this phase. Well, more news from the courts. In a significant decision, the Supreme Court has made it clear that the Election Commission has power to inquire into complaints of paid news against a person contesting polls. According to the court, Section 10A of the People's Representation Act 1951, the Election Commission has a right to cancel the candidature. The Apex Court has also directed the Commission to decide complaint of the paid news against former Maharashtra Chief Minister Ashok Chavan within 45 days. The matter is related to the 2009 state elections held in September-October, which the Maharashtra Chief Minister Ashok Chavan had won.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आज अशोक चव्हाण के मैटर में जजमेंट आई है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ये कंसिडर कर रही थी कि इलेक्शन कमीशन का पावर है सेक्शन 10A रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल्स एक्ट में डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन करने के लिए पेड न्यूज़ के मामले में। तो अशोक चव्हाण जी पिटीशन डिसमिस हो गई है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने होल्ड किया है कि इलेक्शन कमीशन को ये अधिकार है, ये पावर है, ये जुरिस्डिक्शन है कि वो ऐसे मैटर्स में डिस्क्वालीफाई कर सके और इलेक्शन कमीशन को डायरेक्शन दिया है कि 45 डेज में वो डे टू डे कार्रवाई करके इस मामले को तुरंत निपटा दे।
Well, Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has said that the global economy has shown signs of strengthening over the past few months and the emerging markets like India need to increase investments, especially in infrastructure, to revive growth. Speaking at the first business session of the 47th annual meeting of the ADB Board of Governors in Astana, Kazakhstan, Chidambaram also stressed upon the need to increase resources of the Asian Development Bank for lending. He added there is a need to ensure flows to emerging markets are broadly stable. Chidambaram said that the slowing of growth in emerging markets is due to weaknesses in advanced economies and there is need that these economies, these markets especially, need to rebalance their domestic sources of growth. Meanwhile, Finance Ministry has also allayed the fears of US stimulus withdrawal will impact the FDI flow in the country. The government is confident that India will continue to attract investments due to various positive factors.
In a recent report, Finance Ministry said that withdrawal of fiscal stimulus program in the US will not impact foreign investments into India. Finance Ministry said that country is an attractive destination on its own and has remained the third most preferred nation for FDI since 2010. According to Ministry, liberalizations in FDI policy, a competitive workforce, a rapid GDP growth rate and rapidly growing market are the main drivers of foreign investment in India. The United States has already started winding down quantitative easing of fiscal stimulus program. The global capital markets and international currencies in several countries, including India, witnessed knee-jerk reactions after news of quantitative easing being trimmed by the US Federal Reserve first surfaced last year. The US Fed had been buying bonds worth $80 billion a month to stimulate the American economy after the 2009 global financial crisis. It has now started reducing the amount in a phased manner, prompting concerns that the move will curtail investments into countries like India. FDI into India was $46.55 billion in 2011-12 and $34.29 billion in the following fiscal. In 2013-14, the inflow stood at $28.8 billion for a period of April to January. From being a minor player in global FDI environment in the year 2000, India rose to be the world's 13th largest FDI host country in 2009. It is also the third most preferred investment destination since 2010 globally. Business Report, DD News.
Well, it's time for some quick bites in regards to the corporate world, starting with the Deloitte report. According to Deloitte Global Economic Outlook report, country's economic growth will improve in coming quarters, but the pace is likely to be gradual due to persistent challenges such as elevated inflation and policy uncertainty. The report says that the country's growth outlook will also hinge on the election outcome on May the 16th.
Job growth grew at its fastest pace in more than 2 years in April. 288,000 new jobs were created. The unemployment rate came down dramatically to 6.3%, raising new hopes that economic activity picked up the pace as the weather got better this spring.
And I think what will happen is people start raising their economic forecast in terms of overall GDP, but they also might start changing the timing of the Fed and bringing forward a change in the federal funds rate, perhaps as early as the second quarter of 2015, rather than perhaps what we expected was the third quarter of 2015. And so it's that delicate balance of better growth but higher rates.
That delicate balance likely the reason for the muted response by the stock market, which barely budged on the report. Average hourly earnings were flat. The average work week held steady at 34.5 hours. But part of why the unemployment rate is at its lowest level in more than 5 years is that fewer people are looking for work. 806,000 people left the workforce last month. White House Council of Economic Advisors Chairman James Furman.
It wasn't the unemployed giving up looking for jobs. It was actually some people that would normally enter the labor force not entering the labor force. We don't fully understand why that is. What we do know, though, is that broader measures of unemployment that include discouraged workers, that include marginally attached workers, that include people working part-time involuntarily, those broader measures went down as well, along with the regular unemployment rate.
The gains that were seen were virtually all in the private sector, with a strong gain in construction.
They tend to be short-term jobs. They're more retail-oriented than sort of structurally oriented. And the kind of jobs that, at the margin, for example, could be done by part-time workers. When the Fed looks at long-term unemployment and the structure of labor employment in the United States, that shift really does matter in the long run. It's the kind of thing that tends to potentially mute the otherwise good numbers that we've seen.
The jobs report joins other recent upbeat data, including consumer spending and industrial production, that confirmed the almost non-existing first quarter growth was indeed because of the weather. Business Desk, DD News.
But the positive impact on Wall Street from stronger than expected job growth and a plunge in the jobless rate was short-lived as bloodshed in Ukraine added to fears that Russia may invade Ukraine. Clearly, the crisis in Ukraine is still hurting the world economy.
Employers added to payrolls in April at the fastest pace in more than 2 years, with hiring across the board and figures for February and March upwardly revised as well. Unemployment lines shrank to a 5.5-year low of 6.3%. Unemployment shrank because lots of people left the workforce last month.
What you're finding is that many are getting discouraged, and so the broader numbers, unemployment numbers, are improving, and in fact are also at all-time lows, but the mix is changing. Those who are discouraged, those who are pulling themselves out, or those who would like a full-time job but can only get a part-time job, are fairly stable.
Economists say Friday's numbers won't significantly alter Federal Reserve policy. Yields on the 10-year note fell to a 3-month low, but that had more to do with news concern about Ukraine. Clashes broke out in several cities between pro-Russian activists and pro-Ukrainian supporters. The violence is especially intense in eastern Ukraine, in one of the deadliest outbreaks of violence since February. And fears are growing of a Russian invasion after Moscow described one incident involving Ukrainian forces as a punitive operation. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Barack Obama and German Chancellor Angela Merkel emerged from talks warning Russia will face more sanction if it interferes with Ukraine elections near the end of the month. An uptick in geopolitical jitters sent investors looking for a place to hide. Gold rallied in its biggest gain in 2 months. Stocks in London nudged higher on Friday, but Germany and France were down. Business Bureau DT News.
Well, time for a short break. More after this break.
अगर सीमेंट जंग रोधक न हो तो हानिकारक हो सकता है।
श्री अल्ट्रा रेड ऑक्साइड, भारत का विश्वसनीय जंग रोधक सीमेंट,
जो मेरी काबिलियत और रोजगार की दूरी को कम करता है। मेरा वोट उसी को, मेरा वोट कांग्रेस को।
प्रधान जी, हमारे हैंडपंपों में पानी नहीं आ रहा।
हमारे बोरिंग में भी पानी नहीं आ रहा, फसल सूख रही है।
हमारे हैंडपंपों में पानी इसलिए नहीं आ रहा क्योंकि भूमि जल स्तर बहुत नीचे चला गया, इसे रिचार्ज करना होगा। चेक डैम और तालाबों द्वारा जल का फिर से भरण करना होगा और साथ ही इस बात का भी ध्यान रखें कि तालाबों में कपड़े ना धोएं और जानवरों को ना नहलाएं, इससे जल प्रदूषित होता है। जल प्रदूषण न करें, जल संरक्षण करें।
जल बचाएं, कल बचाएं।
साडा वोट तो उसी को जाएगा जिसने आज तक कभी किसी किसान के साथ नाइंसाफी नहीं होने दी। मेरा वोट कांग्रेस को।
Welcome back. Jammu and Kashmir is popular all over the world for its mesmerizing beauty. The Dal Lake of Srinagar, nicknamed as Jewel in the Crown of Kashmir, is a popular tourist destination in the valley. A large number of tourists throng here every year just to get a ride on shikara in the Dal Lake. Tourism is the backbone of the state economy and a major source of revenue.
In an effort to woo tourists, Kashmir, the tourism department, reopened a tourist park by the side of a scenic freshwater brook. This initiative by the tourism department is bound to improve the economy and employment opportunities in the area. The department took approximately 2.75 acres of wasteland to develop it to a fully landscaped garden of deciduous chinar trees, and hence it is known as Chinar Park. Kulgam is 70 kilometers away from Srinagar city in northern Jammu and Kashmir. A whopping 2 crore or 20 million has already been spent on the park, and an additional amount of 50 lakh rupees or 5 million is planned to be spent more on this park.
तो उसी स्ट्रीम के किनारे हमने एक पार्क डेवलप करने की कोशिश की है, जिसको हमने चिनार पार्क का नाम दिया। वहाँ बहुत सारे चिनार के दरख्त भी हैं, क्योंकि कुलगाम के एरिया को भी बड़ा टूरिस्ट अट्रैक्शन अपने पोटेंशियल है, और हम चाहते हैं उसको भी टूरिस्ट मैप पे स्लोली लाया जाए।
Another main aim, according to the department, is to provide a shelter and stopover for locals as well as tourists traveling to other destinations in Kashmir. The locals of the area are delighted and optimistic that the new park would open new employment opportunities for them with a boost in tourism.
रोजगार भी बढ़ेगा, क्योंकि यहाँ भी थोड़ा सा होटल कैंटीन भी खुलेगा, थोड़ा सा होटल भी खुलेगा, वो भी थोड़ा सा रेस्टोरेंट भी बनेगा, क्यों नहीं यहाँ बहुत चलेगा, काम भी यहाँ से बहुत चलेगा।
The park is one of its kind, with the main attraction being the water stream flowing in the middle of the park. The department is also planning to construct a cafeteria and restrooms. Kashmir is considered as one of the best tourist destinations, with the famous hospitality of the valley being an added attraction to tourists from across the globe and maintains the popularity of tourism sector. Kashmir was once dubbed the Switzerland of the East. It was once Mecca for climbers, skiers, honeymooners and filmmakers drawn to the state's soaring peaks, fruit orchards and timber houseboats bobbing on Dal Lake in Srinagar. The tourism sector of the valley had suffered a setback in recent years due to increased militant activity in the region, but gradually it has started booming once more. Business Desk, DD News.
Well, it's time for some quick bites in regards to the corporate world. According to Deloitte's Global Economic Outlook report, country's economic growth will improve in coming quarters, but the pace is likely to be gradual due to persistent challenges such as elevated inflation and policy uncertainty. The report says that the country's growth outlook will also hinge on the election outcomes on May the 16th. Well, two mascots of Goa tourism, which are being developed to spread social awareness messages among tourists against problems like drug and pedophilia, would soon be unveiled. Both the mascots would be launched during the Coconut and Cashew Festival 2014, which would be held from May 21st to 25th. Well, Airtel has announced the resumption of its 3G services in 8 circles. In a statement, the service provider said 3G roaming services would now be available in Haryana, Maharashtra, Goa, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Kolkata and UP East from today. Prepaid customers in Kolkata can start enjoying 3G roaming right away on Airtel by selecting from 5 packs, while postpaid customers can avail the 3G roaming services soon. Well, Sri Lanka's trade deficit narrowed by 21% to $504 million in February from $635 million a year earlier. February exports edged up 5.4% from a year earlier to $841 million, while imports fell 6.2% to $1.34 billion. Well, shares in Singapore-based budget carrier Tiger Airways slumped by as much as 8% to a one-month low after it posted widening losses. The firm saw its losses rising to 96 million Singapore dollar in January to March quarter from $15 million during the same period a year earlier. Well, Indonesia's economy grew at a much slower than expected pace in the first quarter as investments and exports weakened. Gross domestic product in the January to March quarter rose 5.21% from a year earlier against 5.72% in the fourth quarter. And finally, China's factory activity remained stuck in contraction for a fourth straight month in April. The final market HSBC Purchasing Managers Index came at 48.1, which is lower than the 48.3 reading and staying below the 50 mark that separates expanding activity from contraction. The latest data paints a much more bearish picture of the manufacturing sector in the economy. Continuing with our stories, a first of its kind elephant conservation center in Agra rescues elephants from across the country to provide a safe haven to the jumbos to roam unfettered. A report.
A first of its kind elephant conservation center in Agra rescue elephants from across the country to provide a safe haven to the jumbos to roam unfettered, indulge in the luxury of spa and goodies, all in the replica of a wildlife environment. The 10-acre center has been opened by the Wildlife Association and Save Our Souls. The center is built to cater to every necessity and requirement that would satisfy and please an elephant, like the change in diet with the changing season, medical facility and exercise. A 9 feet deep pool has been built for the elephants to beat the summer heat. Senior Veterinary Officer of Wildlife Association, Yaduraj, spoke lovingly of the animals.
जी ये यहाँ पे अभी 7 हाथी है और इसको हम लोग एलिफेंट कंजर्वेशन एंड केयर सेंटर कहते हैं या प्यार से एलिफेंट हेवन हाथियों का स्वर्ग कहते हैं। यहाँ पे जो भी हाथी आप देख रहे हो वो कहीं ना कहीं से रेस्क्यू करके आए हैं, जिनको हम लोग बेगिंग एलिफेंट इंग्लिश में कहते हैं, जो रास्ते पे घूमते हैं पैसे मांगते हुए या कहीं शादी शुरू है या किसी दुकान के ओपनिंग में वगैरह जिनको ले जाते थे, जिनका रखरखाव सही नहीं था या कागजात सही नहीं थे, ऐसे सब हाथी यहाँ पे जिनको ज़रूरत थी रेस्क्यू की या किसी इलाज की ट्रीटमेंट की, ऐसे सब हाथी वन विभाग ने रेस्क्यू करके हमारे पास यहाँ पे भेज दिया है। और मुझे कहने में बहुत खुशी हो रही है कि ये भारत का एकमात्र और पहला ऐसा सेंटर है हाथियों का जहाँ पे सब हाथी बिना चेन के 24 घंटे रखे जाते हैं।
The unfettered elephants are allowed to roam free in a radius of 10 to 15 kilometers every morning and evening in an exact replica of the wildlife forest, which provides a sense of home, thus improving their health, psychological as well as physical. There are both male and female elephants at the center. The caretakers here have appealed to the animal lovers to visit the center and contribute towards the improvement and well-being of the animals. Bureau Report, DD News.
So Jumbo is having fun there. Time for recap of the top headlines. Markets snap 5-day losing streak. Sensex gains 41 points. Nifty ends just one notch down below 6,700 levels. That's 6,699. Supreme Court agrees to hear real estate giant Supertech's plea challenging Allahabad High Court's order. The High Court had called for demolition of its 240-floor towers in Noida. Supreme Court also directs maintenance of status quo. And finally, campaigning about to end in the last day for the 8th phase of Lok Sabha polls. 64 Lok Sabha seats spread over 7 states will go to the polls on Wednesday. Prominent candidates in this phase include Rahul Gandhi, Pallam Raju and Rajiv Pratap Ruri. Well, that's all in this edition of Business Wrap. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.